With me, Cynthia Ng. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, has confirmed that a Singaporean businessman and property developer has been questioned in connection with a high-profile investigation. It was reported today that tycoon Abbas Khan was briefly detained for questioning last week in connection with a corruption and money laundering probe after investigators raided his home and business premises in Kuala Lumpur. Channel News Asia reported that Akbar's business and personal accounts had been frozen by the MACC. He was also ordered to declare his assets and the financial holdings of his company. The 83-year-old businessman had declined to comment on the matter and is expected to be recalled for further questioning in the coming days, along with other former close associates. The latest probe is part of a widening investigation into former Finance Minister Tun Daim Zainuddin, which began last year. Akbar struck a friendship with Daim in the late 1980s during the latter's first stint as Finance Minister between 1984 and 1991. The rate of hardcore poverty in Sabah is 6 times higher than the national average. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli reveals that the rate in Sabah stands at 1.2%, in stark contrast to the national rate of 0.2%, with the Tongok district being the highest at 5.9%.
Sebab itu kerajaan, saya dah maklumkan, itu salah satu sebab kenapa kita meluncurkan padu, kerana kita tahu bahawa kita tak boleh lagi bergantung seperti kaedah lama, kita menunggu orang miskin datang kepada kita.
Rafizi added that the PADU system will accurately identify those eligible for assistance, with discussions to be held with the Sabah state government to facilitate this process. Besides Tongot, the rate of hardcore poverty in 8 of the poorest districts in Sabah is 5% in Beluran, 4.8% in Pitas, 4.6% in Kinabatangan, 4% in Kota Marudu, 2.6% in Tuaran, as well as 2.4% in both Ranau and Lahad Datu.
The Human Resources Ministry plans to raise the eligibility age for the Housewives Social Security Scheme (SKSSR) from 55 to 60. Minister Stephen Sim says the move will allow more than 720,000 women in Malaysia to be covered under the Social Security Organisation SOCSO plan. The move, however, necessitates amending the Employment Act, a process Stephen said the government will begin this year. He added that the ministry targets 500,000 women for SKSSR this year, following the successful registration of 205,000 women in 2023. SKSSR was implemented on 1 December 2022 under the Housewives Social Security Act 2022, aimed at providing social security protection to housewives against domestic injury while managing the household or those afflicted with illness or invalidity. The Court of Appeal has upheld the death sentences of 6 men convicted of murdering Deputy Public Prosecutor Dato Anthony Kevin Moraes 9 years ago. A 3-judge panel unanimously dismissed the 6 men's appeal to overturn the High Court's decision on 10 of July 2020, which convicted and sentenced them to death for the murder.
The 6 men are a former pathologist, Colonel Dr. R. Kunasegaran, moneylender S. Ravi Chandran, and 4 unemployed men, R. Dineshwaran, A.K. Tinesh Kumar, M. Vishwanath, and S. Nimalan. According to Judge Hadharia Said Ismail, the Court of Appeal has found no error in terms of laws and facts from the High Court judge after examining all the grounds of judgment and the evidence presented in court. She said the murder was carefully planned and the sentence for the accused was appropriate for the gruesome case. The men were found guilty of killing Moraes on September 4, 2015. His body was found in a cement-filled drum, which had been thrown into a swamp in Subang Jaya on September 16 the same year.
Malaysians crossing to Singapore by land through the Woodlands and Tuas checkpoints will be able to clear immigration with a QR code from next Tuesday. Travelers will need to create a profile via the Singaporean Immigration and Checkpoints Authority's mobile app MyICA to generate a QR code before reaching the checkpoints.
To generate the QR code, Malaysians will need to scan the machine-readable zone of their passport to input information, while Singapore residents can automatically do so using SingPass. Once at a checkpoint, users can then self-scan the QR code to gain entry into the country, instead of presenting their passport to an ICA officer at the car counter. Each QR code can be used for individual travelers or up to a total of 10 travelers in a group, and will be valid for a year after generation or upon the passport's expiry date. However, entry via QR code is only available to those who have previously visited the country. First-timers or those who have since gotten a new passport will need to go through the standard immigration procedure with a physical passport.
We will go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
The Malaysian delegation led by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is set to travel to Hamburg, Germany for further investment engagements. To sum up his trip thus far, our correspondent Irfan Faruqi in Berlin has the report.
Thank you, colleague, from All Asia Broadcast Centre. For tonight, I want to give a little bit of summary about what is happening in Germany, especially Berlin. And today there is no official schedule for the Prime Minister, except for the entire entourage and delegation will be moving from Berlin to Hamburg for the next program on the next day. And to sum up what happened here in Berlin during the three-state engagement with the leaders of Germany and also the companies, corporate companies that have been meeting with the Prime Minister one-on-one. Among others, Prime Minister has always give this a special stress on Malaysia becoming a very conducive place and destination for investment and business. And among other things, Prime Minister have always been repeating this message that one of the good things about Malaysia that we have a clarity on policy and political stability and also peace in Southeast Asia in the context of ASEAN in a whole. And last night during the Prime Minister's speech during the SMB Future Day program, in his keynote, because as we understand that Prime Minister's speech has been clouded by more focus on Gaza and a crisis, and also Malaysia standing with China in terms of business. Of course, Prime Minister has said that Malaysia is fiercely independent, but among others, what is so interesting about the Prime Minister's speech last night is how did the Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, emphasis on the values that we have here in Southeast Asia, in which we are there's diversity in Malaysia, there's diversity in Southeast Asia, but still we can work as a team. And let's hear a snippet from the Prime Minister's speech.
In the Southeast Asia nations in ASEAN, we have a multiracial society. In Malaysia, of course, the majority are Muslims, but we have enormous number of ethnic Chinese, ethnic Indians, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists working together. Malaysia, in the north is a Buddhist island, in the south is Singapore, in the east is the Christian Philippines. But we work as a team.
Well, I think that sums up what's happening here in Berlin. This is investment mission, and this investment mission will continue in Hamburg. For today, there is no official schedule for the Prime Minister, but the entire delegation will go to Hamburg as well as the media team. And once we reach there, I will bring more updates on what's happening in Germany in the last 2 days before the Prime Minister will fly back to Malaysia. Going back to colleague, thank you very much.
The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a landmark bill that could see TikTok banned in America. It would give the social media giant's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, 6 months to sell its controlling stake, or the app would be blocked in the U.S.
TikTok CEO Shouzi Chew said the legislation, if signed into law, would also take billions of dollars out of the pockets of creators and small businesses.
This legislation, if signed into law, will lead to a ban of TikTok in the United States. Even the bill sponsors admit that that's their goal. This bill gives more power to a handful of other social media companies. It will also take billions of dollars out of the pockets of creators and small businesses. It will put more than 300,000 American jobs at risk, and it will take away your TikTok.
While the bill passed overwhelmingly in a bipartisan vote, it still needs to clear the Senate and be signed by President Joe Biden to become law. The measure is the latest in a series of moves in Washington to respond to U.S. national security concerns about China.
One man was killed and another seriously injured after a gold mine collapsed in Australia. Another 28 miners took refuge in a nearby safety pod before being rescued, while the mine has been shut down pending a safety investigation.
A crew of 30 miners were working 500 meters underground at the Ballarat gold mine in the state of Victoria when it collapsed on Wednesday night. Union officials had raised questions about the mine's safety record before, following a previous collapse in 2007 when the mine was owned by another company. The Australia Workers' Union said the miners in this round had been using a manual style of extraction known as air legging. It said the technique, which uses a handheld drill to bore into rock, had been phased out in some mines due to safety concerns. Victoria produces about 30% of all the gold mined in Australia and almost 2% of the world's annual production.
Over in India, thousands of farmers rallied in New Delhi today to demand for higher crop prices. Police permitted 5,000 of them to gather at the iconic Ramlila Maidan weeks before general elections are called.
The farmers began a march to Delhi last month to call for higher guaranteed prices for their crops. They are also pressing the government to keep its promises to waive loans and drop legal cases brought against them during their previous protests. Several rounds of talks so far have failed to break the deadlock, but they were stopped by police armed with tear gas and water cannons about 200 kilometers north of the capital, where they have remained since. At least one protester has died in clashes with police, while dozens more were injured. A similar year-long protest in 2021 had forced Prime Minister Narendra Modi to repeal agriculture laws, in a major reversal for his government.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching and good night.